The night before my 50th birthday, I woke with a violent start, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. The sheets were drenched, clinging to my skin in cold, damp patches. My father's face lingered in my mind, clear as day, though he'd been gone for 3 years. "Olivia," he'd said, his voice carrying that tone he used when something was seriously wrong. "Don't wear the dress. The one Mark gave you. Don't wear it." He'd repeated it 3 times, standing in the doorway of my bedroom, wearing that gray sweater I'd knitted him for his 60th birthday. His eyes had been urgent, pleading, and then he'd simply faded into the darkness. I sat up in bed, gasping for air, my hand fumbling for the lamp. Light flooded the room, and there beside me was Mark, sleeping soundly, completely undisturbed. His breathing was even and peaceful, the breathing of a man without a care in the world. I slipped out of bed carefully, my legs unsteady beneath me as I made my way to the kitchen. My hands trembled as I poured myself a glass of water. I stood at the sink, drinking slowly, trying to calm the storm raging inside my chest. It was just a dream, I told myself. Just pre-birthday jitters. But I couldn't shake the image of my father's face, the intensity in his eyes, the urgency in his voice. The dress. 2 weeks ago, Mark had come home carrying an elegant box wrapped in cream-colored paper and tied with a silk ribbon. Inside was the most beautiful evening gown I'd ever seen. Deep emerald green, my absolute favorite color. The fabric shimmered when it caught the light, and the cut was perfect for my figure, elegant without being too revealing. "For your birthday celebration," Mark had said, smiling in a way that had made my heart swell. "I commissioned it from that seamstress Nicole recommended, Evelyn Reed. I gave her all your measurements. I want you to be the most stunning woman at your party." I'd been touched, genuinely moved. Mark wasn't usually one for grand romantic gestures. In our 20 years of marriage, his gifts had always been practical. A new vacuum cleaner, a kitchen appliance, sensible shoes. This was different. This showed thought, care, romance, though there had been something in the way he'd insisted I wear it. "You must wear this dress, Liv. Promise me. I want everyone to see how beautiful my wife is. No other dress will do. You understand? This is a special occasion." I'd laughed it off then, assuring him I would wear it. How could I not, when he'd gone to such trouble? But now, standing alone in my dark kitchen at 5 in the morning, my father's warning echoing in my mind, I felt a cold dread settling deep in my bones. I walked back to the bedroom and stood in the doorway, watching Mark sleep. 20 years together. 2 decades of shared meals, shared beds, shared dreams. The father of my daughter. How could I possibly suspect him of anything sinister because of a dream? I climbed back into bed, but sleep wouldn't come. I lay there counting my breaths, trying to relax, but my father's voice kept replaying in my mind, over and over like a broken record. "Don't wear the dress from your husband." When the alarm finally went off, I'd been awake for hours. Mark stretched beside me, yawning widely before turning to kiss my cheek. "Morning, birthday girl," he mumbled, still half asleep. "How'd you sleep?" "Fine," I lied, forcing brightness into my voice. "A little nervous, I suppose." "Nothing to be nervous about." He sat up, rubbing his face. "Nicole's planned everything perfectly. And you in that dress? You'll be absolutely radiant." There it was again, that emphasis on the dress. "Mark," I began carefully, "I was thinking, maybe I should wear the blue one instead. You know, the one we picked out together last year? It really flatters me." He went very still. When he turned to look at me, there was something in his eyes, a flash of something I couldn't quite identify. Anger, fear. "Liv," he said, his voice taking on an edge. "We agreed. I specifically commissioned that dress for your 50th birthday. It cost a considerable amount of money, by the way. Ms. Reed worked very hard on it, making sure every detail was perfect. You can't seriously be trying to back out now. No, of course not, I said quickly, feeling inexplicably guilty. I just thought. Don't think, he interrupted, but then softened his tone. Sorry. I really want everything to be perfect. Please, live. Wear the dress I chose for you. For me. I nodded, unable to explain why tears were suddenly threatening. Of course. I'll wear it. He smiled, satisfied, and headed to the bathroom. I sat there on the edge of the bed, my hands clenched into fists, wondering why my heart was racing and my palms were sweating. After Mark left for work, I tried to busy myself with preparations. I called Nicole, who chattered excitedly about the party arrangements. Everything was confirmed: the restaurant, the cake, the band. Little Mikey, my 4-year-old grandson, was apparently telling everyone at preschool about his grandma's big party. The doorbell rang at exactly 10:30. Evelyn Reed stood on my porch, professional and pleasant, carrying a large garment bag. Good morning, Mrs. Sutton. I've brought your beautiful gown. I made the final adjustments you requested, hemmed the bottom and took in the darts slightly. I believe it will fit you absolutely perfectly now. I invited her in, trying to ignore the knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. She carefully removed the dress from its bag, and I had to admit it was breathtaking. The emerald fabric caught the light beautifully, and the craftsmanship was impeccable. Please try it on, Ms. Reed urged. I want to make absolutely certain everything is just right. I changed behind the screen and slipped into the dress. It fit like it had been made for my body specifically, which, of course, it had. The zipper glided up smoothly. The fabric hugged my curves without constricting. When I stepped out and looked in the mirror, I saw an elegant woman looking back at me, sophisticated and beautiful. Oh, Mrs. Sutton, Ms. Reed clasped her hands together. You look absolutely stunning. That neckline, that waist, perfect. You're going to be the belle of the ball, truly. I ran my hands down the sides of the dress, over the hips, along the hem. Everything felt normal, looked normal. So why did I feel this persistent sense of dread? The lining is pure silk, Ms. Reed explained, pointing out the details. Your husband insisted on only the finest materials. And see here, he requested I add hidden pockets along the side seams, in case you want to keep your phone or a tissue handy. I nodded absently, only half listening. I was trying to identify what felt wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint it. Maybe I really was just being paranoid. I think everything is excellent, Ms. Reed concluded. Unless you have any concerns, I should get going. I have another client waiting. No, it's perfect. Thank you so much for your beautiful work. After she left, I hung the dress carefully in my closet and stood staring at it for a long time. Beautiful, expensive, expertly crafted. Don't wear the dress from your husband. My father's voice wouldn't leave me alone. Mark came home for lunch as promised. He seemed pleased that the dress had arrived and fit perfectly. He mentioned he'd be going out for a few hours in the evening to meet his friend Kevin about some business documents. After he left again, I found myself drawn back to the bedroom, back to the closet where the dress hung. I took it out carefully, laid it across the bed, and began examining it more closely. The stitching was immaculate. Every seam was straight and secure. The fabric was luxurious to the touch. I turned it inside out to examine the lining, running my fingers along the smooth silk. And then I felt it. Near the waist, along one of the side seams, there was a slight irregularity. The fabric felt just a fraction thicker there, as if something had been sewn between the layers. My heart began to pound. I told myself I was imagining it. It was probably just reinforcement stitching, something to keep the fabric from stretching or puckering. Perfectly normal tailoring. But my father's face appeared in my mind again, as clear as if he were standing right in front of me. I stood up, paced around the room, trying to think rationally. If I cut into the lining and found nothing, I'd have destroyed Mark's expensive gift for no reason. I'd have to explain why I'd mutilated a perfectly good dress. But if there was something, I made my decision. I went to my dresser, took out a small pair of embroidery scissors, and returned to the bed. I turned the dress inside out and located the spot where I'd felt the irregularity. Taking a deep breath, I carefully worked the tip of the scissors under a single thread and cut. The thread gave way easily. I widened the opening slowly, my hands shaking, trying not to damage the outer fabric. And then I saw it. White powder began to spill out from between the layers of silk. Fine, talc-like powder that dusted across the dark bedspread. I dropped the dress and stepped back, my hand flying to my mouth. My legs wouldn't hold me. I sank down onto the bed, staring at the powder in complete shock. Someone had deliberately sewn this into my dress. Mark had done this, or ordered someone to do it. But why? What was this powder? With trembling hands, I grabbed my phone and called Iris, my closest friend who worked as a chemist at the hospital laboratory. "Iris," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need your help. Right now. Liv. What's wrong? You sound terrified." "I found white powder sewn into the lining of the dress Mark bought me. I don't know what it is, but Iris, I'm scared." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Iris spoke again, her voice had changed completely. Professional, clinical, urgent. "Listen to me very carefully, Liv. Do not touch that powder again. If you already touched it, go wash your hands immediately with soap and hot water. Wash them multiple times. Then put the dress in a plastic bag and seal it. Collect a small sample of the powder in a separate bag, but wear gloves. Rubber dish gloves will work." "Can you do that?" "Yes, but..." "Do it now. Then bring the sample to me at the lab. I'm here now. Come as quickly as you can." I did exactly as she instructed, scrubbing my hands until they were red and raw, collecting a sample with shaking hands, sealing the dress away. Then I grabbed my keys and drove to the hospital laboratory, my mind spinning with possibilities I couldn't bear to consider. Iris met me at the entrance to the lab building. Her face was grave, her usual warmth replaced with professional concern. "Give me the sample," she said. "Wait here. I'll run a preliminary analysis." I stood in the corridor, leaning against the cold wall, feeling like I might be sick. 30 minutes crawled by before Iris emerged from the lab. Her face was pale. "Come to my office," she said quietly. We sat across from each other at her desk. Iris took a deep breath. "Liv, this isn't talcum powder or cornstarch. This is a highly dangerous toxic substance." The word hung in the air between us. "Toxic. What does that mean?" I whispered. "It's a contact poison," Iris explained carefully. "It's activated by moisture and heat, specifically, by human perspiration. If you had worn that dress to your party, dancing, moving around, getting excited, your skin would have begun to sweat. The poison would have been absorbed through your skin. You would have started feeling weak, dizzy, nauseous. Your heart rate would have accelerated. And then, depending on the dose and exposure time, you could have gone into cardiac arrest." I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to tilt around me. "It would have looked like a natural death," Iris continued softly. "A heart attack. Particularly in a 50-year-old woman at a celebration, perhaps drinking wine, experiencing heightened emotions. No one would have suspected anything." "Mark," I breathed. "My husband tried to kill me." Iris reached across the desk and gripped my hands. "Liv, you need to go to the police immediately. I have a friend who's a detective, a good man, someone we can trust. Let me call him." She made the call while I sat there, numb with shock. Within minutes, she handed me a slip of paper with a phone number. "Detective Leonard Hayes. He's expecting your call." Detective Hayes arrived 20 minutes later. We sat in a quiet corner of the hospital lobby, and I told him everything. The dream, the dress, the powder. He listened carefully, taking notes, his expression growing darker with each detail. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me seriously. "Mrs. Sutton, I need to tell you something. Your husband has been under investigation for several months now. He's involved in serious financial fraud, illegal real estate transactions. He borrowed money from some very dangerous people and lost it. The amounts are substantial. These aren't the kind of people who accept excuses or delays." I felt like I was drowning. "What are you saying?" "6 months ago, your husband took out a large life insurance policy on you. We flagged it as suspicious at the time, but we couldn't prove anything. Now," he gestured at the sealed bag containing the powder sample, "now we have evidence of attempted murder." "He was going to kill me for the insurance money," I said flatly. "It wasn't a question. It appears so. The poison in the dress was meant to make your death look accidental. A tragic heart attack at your birthday celebration. He would have collected the insurance money and paid off his debts. 20 years of marriage. 20 years of believing I knew this man, that he loved me, that we were partners. And all along, he'd been planning to murder me. What do I do now?" I asked. Detective Hayes leaned forward. "Your party is tomorrow, correct?" "Yes." "Here's what I propose. You go to your party, but not in that dress. Wear something else, anything else. My officers will be present, undercover, watching everything. Your husband expects you to wear the poisoned dress and die. When he sees you in a different outfit, alive and well, he'll panic. That's when we'll arrest him. You want me to be bait. I want you to be safe while we catch a dangerous criminal. You'll have protection every moment. I promise you that." Part of me wanted to run, to hide, to never see Mark's face again. But a stronger part of me wanted justice. He'd tried to take my life, and he needed to answer for that. "All right," I said. "I'll do it." I returned home that evening to find Mark already there, watching television as if nothing was wrong. As if he hadn't sewn poison into a dress meant for his wife. "How was your day?" he asked cheerfully. "Fine. I managed. Just running errands." That night, I lay beside him in bed, listening to him breathe, wondering how I'd ever thought I knew him. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the white powder spilling from the dress, and I knew that my father had saved my life. The next morning, my actual birthday, Mark woke up first and kissed me on the forehead. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Today's going to be perfect." Nicole and her family arrived mid-morning. My son-in-law Darius carried an enormous bouquet of roses, and little Mikey launched himself into my arms, chattering about the biggest cake ever. I held my grandson close, breathing in his little boy smell, reminding myself that this was what mattered. This was what I was fighting for. Mark came home in the afternoon, excited and energized. "Time to get ready. We need to be at the restaurant by 6. I went into the bedroom and closed the door. My hands were steady as I took the blue dress from the closet, the one I'd wanted to wear from the beginning. I put it on, zipped it up, checked my reflection. I looked good. More importantly, I looked alive. When I emerged from the bedroom, Mark was standing by the window. He turned when he heard my footsteps. The expression on his face told me everything I needed to know. Shock. Confusion. Barely controlled rage. "What is this?" His voice was sharp, dangerous. "Why aren't you wearing the dress I gave you?" "I prefer this one." I kept my voice calm, steady. "Liv, we agreed. I specifically ordered that dress. It cost a fortune. You can't just. It's my birthday, Mark. I'll wear whatever I want." I saw the calculations running behind his eyes. Saw the moment panic began to set in. His entire plan was falling apart, and he didn't understand why. Nicole, sensing the tension, tried to intervene. Dad, what does it matter? Mom looks beautiful. But Mark wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on mine, and in them I saw not my husband of 20 years, but a stranger. A desperate, dangerous stranger. Let's go, I said firmly. The guests are waiting. The restaurant was decorated beautifully. Balloons, flowers, twinkling lights. Friends and family had gathered, smiling and cheerful, ready to celebrate. I smiled back, accepted their hugs and congratulations, all while feeling like I was watching myself from a distance. Mark stayed close to me throughout the evening, but I could feel his agitation growing. He drank heavily, barely ate, kept checking his phone. Several times he tried to pull me aside, but I always found a reason to stay with the guests. I spotted Detective Hayes's officers easily, 3 men at a corner table, dressed casually but with watchful eyes. One of them caught my gaze and gave a subtle nod. They were here. I was safe. The party proceeded. Courses were served, toasts were made, wine flowed freely. Everyone seemed to be having a wonderful time. Everyone except Mark, who grew more tense with each passing minute. When they brought out the birthday cake and everyone began singing, I blew out the candles and made a single wish: let this be over soon. After the cake was served and people began moving to the dance floor, I made my decision. I walked to where the band leader stood and asked for the microphone. The music quieted. All eyes turned toward me. My dear friends, I began, my voice trembling but clear, I want to say a few words. Liv, what are you doing? Mark's face went white. He half rose from his seat. Sit down, Mark, I said, and there was steel in my voice I'd never heard before. Sit down and listen. He froze, uncertain. Today I turn 50 years old, I continued. I thought I'd be celebrating this milestone surrounded by the people I love, by a husband I trusted with my entire life. But yesterday I learned something that changed everything. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Nicole stood up, her hand over her mouth. I learned that the man I've been married to for 20 years tried to murder me. The room erupted in shocked exclamations. Mark lunged toward me, but Detective Hayes's officers were already moving. That's insane! Mark shouted. She's lost her mind. No, Mark. You lost yours. I looked at him steadily, tears streaming down my face. You commissioned a beautiful dress for me, but you had poison sewn into the lining, contact poison that would have killed me right here at this party, making it look like a heart attack. And then you would have collected the insurance money to pay off your debts. You're lying. I would never. The dress is currently with the police forensics laboratory, I interrupted. They've confirmed the presence of poison. They know everything, Mark. About the fraud, the debts, the insurance policy. Everything. Detective Hayes stepped forward, badge in hand. Marcus Sutton, you're under arrest for attempted murder and fraud. Officers, please. Mark tried to run, but 2 officers caught him immediately. They wrestled him into handcuffs while he struggled and shouted. Liv! He screamed, turning back toward me. Liv, please. They forced me. I had no choice. Those people would have killed me. I looked at him, this man who had slept beside me for 20 years, who had held our daughter when she was born, who I believed loved me, and felt absolutely nothing. You did have a choice, Mark, I said quietly. You could have told me the truth. We could have faced it together. But instead you chose to murder me. You chose money over my life. They led him away, still shouting, still protesting. The room fell into chaos, guests crying, demanding explanations, not knowing what to do or say. Nicole rushed to me, sobbing. Mom, why didn't you tell me? Because this wasn't your burden to carry, sweetheart. It was mine. We held each other while the party dissolved around us, while police took statements, while my carefully planned birthday celebration turned into a crime scene. The trial was swift. Mark confessed to everything: the debts, the insurance fraud, the poisoned dress. He claimed he'd had no choice, that the people he owed would have killed him if he didn't pay. The judge wasn't sympathetic. Attempted murder carried a serious sentence. Mark was sent to prison for 15 years. I attended the sentencing and watched as they led him away. He turned back once, our eyes met, and I saw genuine remorse there. But it was far too late for regret. I couldn't stay in that house anymore, the house where I'd slept next to a man who wanted me dead. Every room held memories that had turned poisonous. I put it up for sale and within a month had a buyer. With the money, I bought a small cottage on the outskirts of town, a single-story house with a garden and a porch that overlooked the woods. A quiet place where no one knew my story, where I could breathe again. I found work at the local library, simple, peaceful work that didn't demand too much of me emotionally. I helped patrons find books, organized shelves, kept records. The pay was modest, but it was enough. Nicole called every day, worried about me. I reassured her I was fine, and slowly, surprisingly, I realized it was true. I was fine. I planted a garden, tomatoes, cucumbers, herbs. I learned to cook for one. I read books on my porch in the evenings. I went to bed when I was tired and woke when I was ready. I was alone, yes. But I wasn't lonely. I was free. 6 months after the trial, I returned to the cemetery to visit my father's grave. I brought white chrysanthemums, his favorites, and sat on the bench beside his headstone. "Thank you, Daddy," I whispered. "Thank you for the warning. Thank you for saving me, even from beyond the grave." The wind rustled through the trees, and I felt a warmth, as if someone had wrapped me in a gentle embrace. "I'm okay now," I told him. "I'm more than okay. I'm happy." I never thought I'd be able to say that, but it's true. I found myself again. I sat there for a long time, talking to him about my new house, my job, little Mikey's latest adventures. When the sun began to set, I stood, adjusted the flowers one last time, and walked back to my car. As I drove home through the countryside, past fields and forests painted gold by the setting sun, I turned on the radio. An old song I'd loved years ago was playing. I sang along softly, and my heart felt light. That night, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea and watched the stars emerge. The woods were quiet except for the gentle sounds of crickets and night birds. A whole life stretched ahead of me, a new life, a different life, but mine. Truly mine. No lies. No fear. No betrayal. Just peace and possibility and the profound gift of a second chance. And somewhere I knew my father was smiling. If you're carrying a heavy story of your own, I hope mine gives you strength. Sometimes the life you build after everything falls apart is better than the one you fought so hard to protect. Sometimes surviving means having the courage to choose yourself, to walk away from the ruins and start again. I'm Olivia Sutton, and this is my story. I'm alive. I'm free. And I'm grateful for every single day. 3 years had passed since that birthday party. 3 peaceful years in my cottage. 3 years of healing and rediscovering who Olivia Sutton really was beneath 2 decades of marriage to a man who tried to end her life. I was in my garden on a Tuesday afternoon, my hands deep in the soil as I transplanted tomato seedlings, when I heard the car pull into my driveway. Visitors were rare out here. Nicole usually called first, and the mailman never drove this far up the gravel road. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked around to the front of the house. A sleek black sedan sat in my driveway, and a woman was stepping out, tall, elegant, probably in her early 40s, wearing a tailored gray suit that looked expensive even from a distance. "Mrs. Sutton?" she called out, her voice professional but carrying an undertone of urgency. "Yes." I approached cautiously, My guard's still up even after all this time. Can I help you? She extended her hand. My name is Charlotte Reeves. I'm an investigative journalist with the National Chronicle. I've been researching your case, and I need to speak with you. It's urgent. I didn't take her hand. My case is closed. My ex-husband is in prison. I've moved on. That's just it, Mrs. Sutton. Charlotte lowered her hand, her expression grave. Your husband isn't the only one. There are others. At least 4 other women, maybe more. And I think you're the only one who survived. The words hit me like a physical blow. I steadied myself against the porch railing. What are you talking about? Please, Charlotte said. May I come inside? This isn't a conversation for an open driveway. Against my better judgment, I nodded and led her into my small living room. She sat on the edge of my couch, pulling a thick folder from her briefcase while I made tea with shaking hands. When I returned with 2 cups, she had spread photographs across my coffee table. 4 women, all around my age, all smiling in what looked like formal portraits. Rebecca Walsh, age 48. Died of apparent heart failure at her anniversary party. Charlotte tapped the first photo. Sarah Chen, 52. Cardiac arrest at her daughter's wedding. Another tap. Margaret Torres, 50. Heart attack at a charity gala she was hosting. Tap. Diana Blackwell, 49. Collapsed and died at her birthday celebration. I sank into my chair, staring at the faces. What does this have to do with Mark? All 4 women were married to men with significant debts. All 4 had large life insurance policies taken out months before their deaths. And all 4 were wearing custom-made evening gowns at the time of their deaths, gowns their husbands had specifically commissioned for the events. My teacup rattled against the saucer. The dresses. I believe so. I've been investigating the seamstress, Evelyn Reed. She's worked under several different names across 3 states over the past decade. But here's what's interesting. She's never been charged with anything. In fact, officially, she doesn't exist. No tax records, no property in her name, no driver's license. She came to my house, I whispered. She seemed so normal. Professional. Did she know about the poison? I don't know. She didn't act like it, but… I thought back to that morning, trying to remember any suspicious behavior. She was very particular about the fitting, very insistent that everything was perfect. Charlotte leaned forward. Mrs. Sutton, Olivia, I think there's an organization behind this. Someone who helps desperate men eliminate their wives for insurance money. They make it look like natural causes. No autopsies, no investigations, just grieving widowers collecting insurance checks. But Mark was caught. Wouldn't that have shut them down? Your case was an anomaly. You were warned, she glanced at her notes, by a dream about your father. You investigated before wearing the dress. But the other women, they had no warning. They wore the dresses, they died, and everyone assumed it was tragic but natural. Heart problems run in families, after all. Stress, age, celebration, excitement, all plausible explanations. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at my peaceful garden. 3 years of safety, and now this. Why are you telling me this? What do you want from me? I want to stop them, Charlotte said simply. But I need help. I need someone who understands how they operate, someone who survived. I need you to help me find Evelyn Reed. You're asking me to go looking for the woman who nearly killed me. I'm asking you to help save other women's lives. Because, Olivia, this didn't stop when your husband went to prison. Rebecca Walsh died 6 months ago. They're still out there, still doing this. I closed my eyes and saw my father's face again, as clear as it had been in that dream 3 years ago. He'd saved my life. How could I not try to save others? All right, I said, turning back to Charlotte. Where do we start? She smiled, relief flooding her features. We start with the one thing all these cases have in common, the husbands. Because I don't think the men found this service by accident. Someone connected them to it. And I think I know who. She pulled out another photograph, and my blood ran cold. It was Mark's lawyer, Stephen Graves, the man who'd handled his business affairs, the man who'd been at our house countless times over the years. The man I'd trusted. He's the recruiter, Charlotte said quietly. He finds desperate men with debts, plants the idea, makes the connections. And he takes a percentage of the insurance payout. Does Detective Hayes know about this? He does now. I briefed him yesterday. But here's the problem. We don't have enough evidence. We need to catch them in the act. We need someone to go undercover. I stared at her. You can't be serious. There's a man, David Morrison. His business is failing, he owes money to dangerous people, and his wife has a large life insurance policy. Stephen Graves approached him 2 weeks ago. David came to the police. He wants to help us catch them. So why do you need me? Because the seamstress will be suspicious if David's wife suddenly agrees to wear a custom dress. But if you reach out to her, woman to woman, as someone who's heard about her work through a friend, if you can arrange a meeting, wear a wire, get her to talk about what she does. You want me to be bait. Again. I want you to be a hero, Charlotte corrected. 4 women are dead, Olivia. How many more will die if we don't stop this? I thought of Rebecca Walsh's smiling face in the photograph. I thought of my grandson Mikey, and how close he'd come to growing up without his grandmother. I thought of my father's warning, and how he'd reached across death itself to save me. I'll do it, I said. But on one condition. Name it. When this is over, when they're all in prison where they belong, you write the story. You tell everyone what happened. You make sure no other woman falls into this trap. Charlotte extended her hand again. This time I took it. You have my word, she said.